Okay. Thank you for thank you for the update. We're always excited to hear about the what's going on
University
in the
stuff.
academic world. So, okay,
I don't know if that's super academic, but
Mr.
okay.
Mr. Dr. Hartman, front and center. So,
Uh,
those of you tonight, we're going to have Stefan Hartman, who's probably one of the smartest guys I've come across since we started on this journey here. Next to you, John, of course. So tonight, Stefan's going to be talking about some peptides, particularly Thymosin Alpha 1 and Thymogen. And he's going to talk about some of the mechanisms of action and applications. Stefan is a certified physician assistant, the CEO of Iron Direct Primary Care, and he integrates anti-aging medicine, regenerative medicine directly into primary care. He's got a fantastic facility at his place. He's got a working gym. He can explain a little bit about some of that to us, and he's he's all over everything. He's our Mr. Iodine guy, and he's also a professional tennis player. So we got to keep him in shape. Okay, so Stefan, I'm going to let you take it from there.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clearfield. Let's get started on this very exciting subject of the thymosin alpha 1 and thymogen, but we're primarily going to be focusing on the thymosin alpha 1 because, as we'll find out, most of the literature is on that peptide. So why are we interested in this peptide? Because we're having a big epidemic of immunological problems and cancers. And this peptide is, a natural peptide found in the human body. It's pretty easy to apply. There's relatively no known toxicities found with this product. Um, and we could potentially find it even from natural sources that we could eat. So the thymus, it involutes as we age. This was identified back in Roman times. The surgeon Galen, he found that the children had thymus, it was larger, and that the older population had lower thymuses. So this was well known back then. Here's a demonstration, an image of the two is found. You can see it on X-ray imaging. If you do a pediatric X-ray, you'll be like, what is that? Well, that's a thymus. And then you really don't see it on X-ray imaging in older age. Let's look at some animal studies first before we go into human studies. What happens if a young mammal has the thymus removed? Well, in short, they die. They need it because it helps their developing immune system and it helps them fight off all the illnesses that they're exposed to at a very young age. So there's a couple of mechanisms behind this. The lack of thymus-derived T lymphocytes results in severe symptoms of immune deficiency. And this makes them susceptible to common viruses. And we have other parts of our immune system, but even though other cells of the immune system, such as B lymphocytes and natural killer cells and monocytes and macrophages, are still present in the body, animals still lose the ability to recognize and defend against pathogenic microorganisms and cancer cells. And I think that's one of the most powerful parts that we're going to learn about for thymosin alpha 1 is it helps your body identify the problem and attack it. And that seems to be, in my practice, the big problem that patients have is their immune system just isn't fighting off things like they should. So let's talk about the current known uses. And there's even FDA approval for this medicine or drug in FDA's cases. It's a peptide chain. There's a couple peptides that the thymus produces, but we're going to focus on this lecture on thymosin alpha 1. Its known brand name is Xidaxin, is approved in 2006 to treat hepatitis B, C, and it helps in chemotherapy. It's 28 amino acid long chain of peptide. It was first isolated from bovine thymus gland back in 1977. Recent studies have used it for the treatment of chronic hepatitis B, C, HIV, cytomegalovirus, invasive fungal infections, and it's used as an adjunct in chemotherapy. The pharmacodynamics, it stimulates uh, T cell production and maturation. Mechanism of action, Let's talk a little bit about that. In vivo administration of thymosin alpha 1 to animals immunosuppressed by chemotherapy, tumor burden, or irradiation showed that thymosin alpha 1 protects against cytotoxic damage to bone marrow, tumor progression, and opportunistic infections, thereby increasing survival time and number of survivals. Thymosin alpha 1 has been interpreted as either influences on either differentiation of pluripotent stem cells to thymocytes or activation of thymocytes into activated T cells. Absorption is readily absorbed after an injection and achieves peak levels in the blood after about 2 hours. There's no known toxicity, even when animals have been overdosed with this product, about 800 times the clinical dose, still no adverse effects found in animal studies. And there's been no really human adverse effects found in the studies either. Now, I've actually eaten this before. This is called thymus, and you can get this. I've eaten bison thymus before. It's this little fatty little substance. And I just ate it raw because I really didn't know how else to eat it. And I started chewing on it and I could never actually chew it. So I just swallowed the thing. And I did this because from the Chinese proverb, eat the organ you want to heal. And I wanted to improve my immune system at the time. Organ meats are extremely beneficial. A thymus, beside the potential peptides that you could acquire from eating it raw, is a good source of protein, B12, pantothenic acid, phosphorus, and selenium, and a surprisingly good source of vitamin C, where typical animal meats don't have vitamin C. But the reason I didn't cook it is because when you heat a peptide, you denature it, and you could potentially eliminate any benefit you might consume otherwise by eating a raw bison thymus. So I was hoping to acquire all the peptides of the thymus by eating this. Let's look at some of the broad applications and studies that have been done over the years on thymosin alpha 1. Hepatitis C served as a monotherapy to help treat these patients. That's probably the one that's the known uses for this, the biggest. Hepatitis B, sepsis significantly decreased mortality due to multiple organ failure. HIV infection enhances the function and increases the number of CD4 cells, decreases viral load, and influences thymic T cell output. Pseudomonas infection significantly decreases the infection rates with white blood cell counts and C-reactive protein. Mold toxicity activate the production of Th2 cytokines, stimulating phagocytic activity so the body can go out and take care of the disease. In cancer and chemotherapy, there's a lot of studies on this and how it just it's not like a standalone therapy, but it works synergistically with chemotherapies, both to protect the body's own cells, but to also help the chemotherapy even work better. And then immune deficiency diseases. So immune deficiency, it stimulates IL-2 receptor expression, stimulating the signaling pathways, and initiates the production of immune-related cytokines, improving the functioning of the immune system without causing side effects. And in autoimmune diseases, in experimental animal models of MS, multiple sclerosis, TA1 has shown effectiveness in promoting myelin repair and providing neuronal protection. In pediatric patient with Crohn's disease, achieved clinical remission. And then there's also some use in boosting vaccine efficacy. So thymosin alpha 1 is a biological response modifier. TA1 is therefore expected to have clinical benefits in disorders where immune responses are impaired or ineffective. These disorders include acute and chronic infections and cancers. TA1 has been shown to restore immune functions and help to reduce the mortality in patients with severe sepsis. So a big problem in the ICU is even though you can get the patient through the acute infection, because of the experience, they can often die afterwards, and they don't thrive after a sepsis event. Thymosin alpha 1 also helps modify a hyperactive immune response. And so it was studied in the pandemic for SARS-CoV-2 by the Chinese and others. And there was varying, it was a bit controversial in that pandemic. It never got into the prime time. And the medicine was actually suppressed, and you couldn't actually put on your website that you could use thymosin alpha 1, otherwise you'd have the FDA knocking on your door. So this was a suppressed medicine and didn't really get broad recognition. But there's a lot of mechanisms for why it it was helpful for the cytokine storm. The thymosin alpha 1, without overstimulation of cytokine production, is well tolerated. It's good side effect profile. TA1 for melanoma. So objective response rate, we have to first characterize what this means, is a key endpoint in cancer clinical trials in measuring the percentage of patients whose cancer shrinks or disappears after treatments. So complete response, where all signs of cancer disappeared, or partial response, where there is a measurable reduction in the size of the cancer, but not a complete disappearance. So taking that into consideration, a European multi-center study, 571 patients with stage 4 melanoma, where thymosin alpha 1 was administered along with a chemotherapy drug. The study found that the highest objective response rate were in groups receiving thymosin alpha 1 at 3.2 milligrams. An additional study in Italy, thymosin alpha 1 combined with the chemotherapies, led to 50% objective response rate, and duration of response 13.5 months, so that's significantly higher than historical controls. So these people did better and they survived longer when you use thymosin alpha 1 with chemotherapies. TA1 in small cell lung cancers. TA1 improved immune system in non-small cell lung cancer patients post-radiation therapy. So TA1 is administered biweekly or daily for 14 days followed by biweekly maintenance. This treatment regimen led to significant improvements in relapse-free survival and overall survival without any associated toxicity. Another trial, Gasto 1043, investigated T1's efficacy in combination with concurrent chemoradiation therapy for localized non-small cell lung cancer. Weekly thymosin alpha 1 administration significantly reduced the incidence of grade greater than 2 radiation pneumonitis and severe lymphopenia, which means suppression of the immune system. Let's look at thymosin alpha 1 for liver cancer. 468 patients between May 2010 and April 2016. Those treated with thymosin alpha 1 after surgery for a single hepatitis B virus-related cancer showed significant improvements. Another study, patients receiving thymosin alpha 1 had better disease-free survival and overall survival when they used thymosin alpha 1. So it improves the prognosis of these patients, even with curative surgery. Thymosin alpha 1 in breast cancer. TA1 was found to reverse the M2 polarization of these macrophages, which typically promote tumor growth through IL-10 production during efferocytosis, a process involving the clearance of apoptotic cells. So thymosin alpha 1 helps clear the dead cells. Reduces IL-10 and enhances the function of CD4 and CD8 T cells. TA1 with chemotherapy drug epirubicin demonstrated that this combination therapy could suppress tumor growth, suggesting that T1's mechanism of action in breast cancer involves modulating immune response to enhance the chemotherapy's effectiveness. So let's just explain more of the mechanism of action for, if Dr. Halas is in the chat. So we have to go back to Pathophysiology 101 class, and we have to remember what a dendritic cell is. So this purple cell here in the middle represents a dendritic cell. And what thymosin alpha 1 does is it teaches these dendritic cells to recognize pathogens and cancers. And so it puts the dendritic cell then takes these and then presents it to the T cells and says, hey, this is a cancer cell. This is an Epstein-Barr virus. You need to take care of this and get rid of this. And so it helps that process. It teaches the immune system what to do a little bit better. And so a lot of these patients with the chronic illness and the cancer, the big question is, why aren't they clearing this like another person? Because we develop cancer cells every day. We're exposed to viruses every day. And there's a whole group of patients that just don't clear this stuff and they have chronic disease from it. So the thymosin alpha 1, it retrains your dendritic cells and your immune system to do what they should be doing in the first place. So the TA1, it accelerates dendritic cell maturation, so it enhances this process. Let's see, this was in COVID-19 infection and in thymosin alpha 1. We talked a little bit about this, so how some of these studies maybe didn't get prime time and maybe were suppressed. Now, there's an oral version of this peptide. It's called Thymogen. It doesn't have as much extensive research as Thymosin Alpha 1, mostly some studies in Russia with Thymogen. But it has similar benefits. There are some that are extracted from calf thymus, but they're typically done synthetically. They're synthetic peptides. This is the molecule, but Thymogen Alpha 1 is a synthetic formulation. It's not a calf extract. So that's kind of clear. So this is kind of the few studies done on this thing in St. Petersburg. What did they show here? That the thymic peptides, epitalamin and thymolin, peptide bioregulators, they use it in 266 elderly and older persons for 6 to 8 years. The bioregulators were applied for the first 2 years of observation. The obtained results convincingly showed the ability of the bioregulators to normalize the basic functions of the human organism, such as the cardiovascular, the endocrine, the immune, the nervous, the homeostasis, and the metabolism. When they used this in Russia, it reduced the incidence of respiratory diseases, so infections, ischemic heart disease, hypertension disease, osteoarthrosis, osteoporosis, compared to the controls. So again, that's some of the Russian studies. A lot of the Russians are doing these peptide therapies out there. Here's some slides from Kent Holtorf. He shared these with me. We talk about in chronic disease prevention and management group with Halassa a lot about this immune polarization, this Th17, the Th1 to Tregs, where the immune system goes in one way and doesn't know how to deal with the chemical exposures, the pathogens, and the cancers we deal with every day. And this leads to an exhaustion of the mitochondria, the hormones. And so these peptides, they can potentially reestablish the body's ability to target these pathogens we're exposed to every day. As I alluded to previously, the dendritic cell presentation, the Thymosin Alpha 1 improves the body's ability to recognize pathogens and clear them. So if we can reestablish the immune function, then the patient with the chronic illness, the chronic fatigue, the perpetual exhaustion, they may do better. So better immune health means better overall health and increased longevity. The toxins, the stress of age, chronic infections trigger major immune dysfunction, which results in Th1 Treg and Th2 Th17 shift. We're going to talk about some case theories because I've been using these products over the past 3 years, so you can see some real life presentations and kind of put this in the human perspective rather than just the scientific studies. This is a 46-year-old female who's done 3 rounds of Thymosin Alpha 1 with me, and she requests to go back on the peptide, reporting she feels more balanced having it, especially before my women's cycle. Does the peptide help me with my immune system as well? And obviously it does, because she says, I believe it's helping me slowly. I notice more when I'm not on it. I feel like I need another round, but yes, for me, it seems I'm not as moody, emotional, sensitive while taking the peptide. I always find these feedbacks interesting because this patient maybe didn't understand this peptide very well, didn't do a lot of research on it, took it, and then reported to me that it even helped her immune system, even though she didn't even understand that it's supposed to help the immune system. That was the intended effect. This is a 61-year-old male. He had ground glass opacities post-COVID. He had long COVID. And they cleared up after 2 rounds of Thymosin Alpha 1. I don't have the CT reports, but this was what the patient reported to me. This is a 59-year-old female. She had chronic asthma, 6 attacks a day. She was on montelukast, budesonide, albuterol, but these were not working. She's having asthma attacks again after having gone off the Thymosin Alpha 1. So the Thymosin Alpha 1, it improved her tolerance for asthma. But when she went off it, the asthma came back. So it didn't seem to last. We did a lot of things for her. And in the end, she felt fantastic. She says she felt like a superwoman on Thymosin Alpha 1. When she ran out of it, she would get a lot of asthma attacks. She was exposed to volatile chemicals. She had a new home build. And we thought, okay, there's no mold, possibly. What's going on here? The volatile chemicals from the new home build was triggering her to have asthma. So when she got a better air conduction system in the house and she got all the fumes out, she no longer had the asthma. So that's what was going on there. So, a 49-year-old female with chronic fatigue, watery eyes, no taste, long COVID. Thymosin Alpha 1 has made a great difference for the next few days when she does an injection. The watery eyes and itchiness improves. She notices it wears off at day 3, and she doesn't feel as good. On it, she has more energy. She wakes up with energy. Off it, she feels that she's tired more easily. So this duration is typical. So when I dose thymosin alpha 1, we do a 1.5 milligram injection, subcutaneous, and it seems to last every 3 days. So that's the dosing protocol that we used based off our experience here. And some of the studies. The studies will show maybe once a week, some will do it every day, some will do it twice a week. This is a patient, a 40-year-old, chronically with a URI, upper respiratory infection. Every month she gets sick again and again. Congested headache, long-time exposure in a water-damaged building, so she has mold exposure. She's doing a long renovation. She's using oral Thymogen products. She says when she finished the bottle of the peptide, it really helped her immune system. She felt amazing. Do I have to keep taking it? And I was like, tell me more. I mean, we need to find out how much you need this. She says, I'm not sure 100% if it's Thymogen all by itself. I'm in strength training. I'm doing a lot of things, doing carnivore. But she would get these URIs every month, but the Thymogen helped it go away the next day. The congestions, they finally went away after she had them for months. And she's decreased headache frequency as well. So all these things, recurrent illnesses, headaches, weird symptoms, this is kind of classic for someone with a mold and a mycotoxin. And especially where I live in Florida, this is a very common problem I deal with. This is a 59-year-old female. She's a diabetic type 2, insulin of 30, so she has high insulin levels. So this is insulin resistance. 2 weeks of an upper respiratory infection. It was not improving. With 2 rounds of antibiotics and prednisone, she still come to my office, persistent cough, fatigue, headache, earache, misery. I did it. She says she did a second injection of NAD and noticed a little bit more energy. And then she did the thymosin injection, and she said it really helped her shortness of breath. There's another patient. I'm just finishing up a month of the Thymosin Alpha 1 peptides. I've definitely seen improvements in my POTS-like symptoms, and I'm able to stand or walk for longer periods of time than when I started. I still feel like I could improve more, so I was wondering if I'm able to do another month. So this is a patient, mold exposure, again, biotoxin illness. She had high TGF beta 1 levels greater than 4,800. Indicating biotoxin exposure. She has fatigue, anxiety, palpitations. She had previously been diagnosed by a conventional cardiologist with POTS syndrome. And so I put her on the Thymosin Alpha 1. And she says she has a huge improvement in her POTS symptoms. She's also doing carnivore diet. So we always do conjunction. We always do dietary changes for folks as well. And she feels very good doing that. This is a patient, I just saw her in the sauna today. She's dealt with chronic EBV for many years. And she says she feels very good with the protocol. She's doing cold plunging. It helps her chronic pain. She has great energy now. And she's done a couple cycles of Thymosin Alpha 1. And she feels like it's helped her a lot with her chronic EBV. She also seems to suffer with a spike shedding phenomena where she's around a lot of people who are shedding spike. Maybe they've been vaccinated. She feels pretty bad from this. And she felt very bad about a month ago after traveling. She gave herself a shot of thymosin and felt fully recovered by the next day, which is typically unusual for her, where it usually puts her down for some time. She's also been using a methylene blue on occasion. Seems to help too. This is a 62-year-old male. He's injured with the wild type, the COVID. He's had long COVID, fatigue, pretty debilitated. Now, this guy's interesting because he's responded to any mitochondrial therapy I've given him. So whether that's methylene blue, 5-amino 1-MQ, IV NAD, even though he didn't tolerate it very well, he felt fantastic over the next couple weeks. I gave him a Thymogen, and he also felt pretty good doing oral Thymogen. This is his lymphocyte map while taking Thymosin Alpha 1s. He's done injections and oral, and he's attributed them to a positive impact on his energy and exercise tolerance with his treatment. So this is the lymphocyte map on thymosin alpha 1. Unfortunately, I didn't have it before. Now, he does have elevated total T helper cells, which is something we could theoretically expect by taking thymosin alpha 1. His Th1, Th2 ratio is elevated. His Th17 is low. So I will see high Th17 in patients who have chronic respiratory and sinus epithelial cell dysfunction, where they're exposed to mold mycotoxins. Th17 is upregulated when they have the mold and mycotoxins. This guy really didn't have a super high amount of that. It's actually on the lower end. His regulatory cells were actually surprisingly good. So, typically when I see these patients, they have dysregulated regulatory cells. So when it's uh, low and suppressed, they have autoimmune syndromes. This guy is in the middle, which I actually didn't expect seeing, knowing his case. So maybe it could have something to do with the thymosin alpha 1. His natural killer cells are elevated. This is something that you can also expect with thymosin alpha 1. It increases your natural killer response, ability to fight off illnesses. This is his array 12. And so we always look at the pathogens associated with this. And this guy, it matched up exactly with his symptoms. He was having a chronic issue with bloating. Every time he would eat anything that has maybe a fermentation capability, whether it's a carbohydrate or it's a fermented vegetable, he would have a bloat and indigestion from this. So you can see he has very high Candida albicans, overgrowth or over antibody response to. This is an IgG test, so he's high IgG to Candida. I mean, he's dealing with a lot of Candida. His immune system is trying to fight off Candida. And so I actually ended up putting him on itraconazole. He's on day 15 of it, and he's feeling very good after attempting to treat this. This is another patient asking, can I do another order of Thymogen? I'm like, do I get still? I'm always asking people, like, why do you want to order it? You want to keep taking it? And I always ask for a report. She goes, yes, I'm doing well. I'm able to get up at 4:50 to 5 a.m. That's way too early. I mean, I'm not a morning person. I'm alert and have strength. I haven't felt this well for 8 years. I don't need 120 milligram twice daily of NP thyroid any longer. I take about 60 milligrams now. I don't nap for a few hours a day, 4 hours a day, sorry, but for only 30 minutes and sometimes not at all. I do better with taking Thymogen twice a day rather than once. I even lost 10 pounds the past 2 months, still doing carnivore with a little keto. Pretty cool, right? So here's the two in comparison. We've talked about both. I'd say thymosin alpha 1 is the most researched. I think it's still more efficacious than injectables. Thymogen is an oral version that can be acquired. It's a little bit easier to take. Seems to help some people a lot, even comparatively to the injectable thymosin alpha 1. Again, if you're going to go for the most data-driven one, it's thymosin alpha 1. It's even FDA approved. The oral one is this Russian peptide that's now been popularized in the US. Both, in my opinion, can work. It just depends on the patient and what their preferences are. That is all I have for you guys. I'll put a link in the chat if you guys want to order some of these peptides, at least the oral ones. I do have an affiliate code for that. And then for the doctors, I know we can get you all accounts. I have one of my reps here in the chat. At least she was here. She can reach out to you guys and get you guys accounts to prescribe these injectable peptides. There's Jillian there. Yeah, reach out to Jillian. Any providers that want to prescribe these things, she'll help you out.
Thanks a lot, Stefan.
Yeah. Have you used these peptides, John?
A teeny bit.
I think it could help you.
I just got sent this today. Wound up sitting on my desk. Anyway, it's BPC 157.
Oh, that's I have a lecture on that Thursday with another group. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
And
So
Any other
I've
questions?
been I've been wanting to do it for 2 years. I just haven't been able to afford it, and I got to work out a deal with Jay Campbell.
And Jake Campbell. Okay, yeah. He's another
So
one.
I'm a believer. I just haven't started yet. And it used to be real simple. 20 years ago, we had growth hormone. So if we wanted to get somebody's body put back together, we can give them growth hormone. And then the government got a little tight on that.
I mean, I got sources for that. You can still get growth hormone. I was telling Clearfield before we hopped on this call, I did growth hormone for about 8 months as an experiment. And I went from 178 pounds to 192 pounds. And it was great. I mean, I looked great and I was recovering fast, but I couldn't move on the tennis court. I couldn't compete at 192 pounds. So I cut it out and I've dropped 10, 11 pounds now. I'm now about 181 and I'm moving so much better on the tennis court.
So Stefan, what is you know the thymus extracts? So these are the families that you just discussed. There's one called thymulin. So there's thymosin alpha 1, thymulin, and thymogen.
Hmm.
So actually these are one of the email questions too. So where does thymulin get into this picture, this whole family?
It's one of those peptides that's produced naturally from the thyroid, from the thymus gland. I didn't have a
Mhm.
whole lot of time to learn about thymulin. From one of the slides, it's similar T cell differentiation, helps with inflammation, anti-pro-inflammatory effect, activation of NK cells, but not much. Do you know of any sources to actually utilize that, or is that just?
Yeah, so I've been using I was using that also before the peptide what debacle happened. So thymulin is actually so this little families of thymus extracts. The most basic one, or the mother of all, is thymosin alpha 1. So thymosin alpha 1, as you said, is now even being utilized with pharmaceutical companies as a vaccine. So they're trying to get hepatitis, HIV patients on that. And that's basically T cell regulation, B cell regulation, NK cell regulation. And as you mentioned a while ago, the oral one, which is Thymogen, which is orally made and synthetically made, actually is the kind of the weakest of all the families of thymus extracts. And in the middle of everybody would be thymulin. So thymulin, you're right, is something that's produced naturally by the thymus gland. And the one that claim to fame of thymulin, it actually has a better anti-inflammatory effect compared to TA1 and thymogen for the reason that it can lower cytokines better. And also it affects the neuroinflammation pathology of anybody having neuroinflammation. So it's really more of the cytokine, I guess, suppression that it does compared to the TA1 and thymogen. So, I mean, in terms of my experience using it. So, oh yeah, and the Jillian says she carries that too. So definitely we can connect with her. Here's a question for you on the chat. So they're asking you about the bison, and they're asking, is it sold in packaged cold ice? Does it need to be refrigerated? I live in Canada, and would US ship to Canada in terms of border address? I don't know if you
Yeah.
know the answer to that.
I don't know where they ship to. I got that Thymus bison from North Star Bison. It's an online company. They ship it on ice. Yeah, it's frozen.
Sounds like you're doing Fear Factor stuff here.
I
So
try anything.
was that good? Did you dip it in soy sauce or something?
I tried, but you just chew it and it never stops chewing. So I chopped it up and swallowed the thing.
All right, okay. So for the not for the weak of heart.
Yeah.
Another question, would this be effective to take when diagnosed with squamous cell cancer, area removed by incision? So that's from Renee.
Yeah, I mean it's being studied in melanoma and it's used in conjunction with both excisional therapies and chemotherapies and radiation. And it just seems to help the body target the tumor cells a little bit better and just get rid of them as the body should be doing. So when these tumors, these cancers develop, what is going on? That's the big question. Why are these happening in some people and then some people it's not? And it comes back to your body's ability to detox these things. And the thymus is one of the small parts, or one of the bigger parts, I say, but it's in this whole detox process in the body. It's a detox process. We have the glutathione, we have NAD, we have the vitamins, we have the diet, and then we have the thymus. And it's a huge part of the detoxification process.
Right. And I agree with what you're saying, that it can be applicable to any type of cancer, though the studies about TA1 really focuses more on non-small cell lung cancer, hepatocellular carcinoma, and even malignant melanoma, and also a chemotherapeutic adjunct if you're going through chemotherapy. But in my experience, I do give it regardless of whatever cancer they do have. So it is helpful. Well, I think this is for I think they're asking if this is Dr. Kent. So I think it is. You kind of showed the slide there. And what is your dosing from Kayla for thymosin alpha 1?
I do 1.5 milligram subcutaneous every 3 days.
All right. Okay. So Kayla, that's his dosing. And well, what about for Magda? What about Thymogen?
The
Dosing and
Thymogen,
frequency.
yeah, you can take it 1 or 2 daily, from the cases I've learned about this product. There's not a whole lot of studies on it. You play it by ear.
Right. And with again, this is best taken on an empty stomach. I have used the product that you're using, and they're saying also that I think the one that you're using actually they added a bioregulator to it to enhance the effects of that. I just
Yes.
don't remember what the bioregulator is, but that's why that is definitely a good product, and you'll see from the price also.
Yeah,
So,
the
but
bioregulator is called Lis glue and IPA2.
right. And I think that's what Dr. Kent was talking, that his product is definitely different from the one you can get in the market.
Right.
And then Eric, what parameter on the CBC do you follow? Absolute lymphocytes, WBC, or both?
Yeah, CBC is useful screening tool when you have a high white blood cell count. Then you got to look at the differential. And sometimes you can get a hint from the differential. If the neutrophils are super high, I mean, classically, that might be a bacterial infection. If the lymphocytes are very high, that could be a viral infection. If the eosinophils are high, that could be allergies, or that could be even parasites. But if you really want to know, we order the Cyrex lymphocyte map and then the Array 12 at our practice to look at the whole pattern and the stealth infections at the same time.
Right. I think Eric wants to clarify that in relation to your the administration of thymosin alpha 1, what parameters do you use? Because you showed a while ago your what is it, a subset panel, right?
Yeah, it was lymphocyte map.
The lymphocyte, yes, from yeah. So that's I think so Eric, I think it's a different company. This is not the Quest or Lab4, the one that he showed. And then Tatiana, what are the potential drawbacks of using this product? Who cannot use it?
Well, the studies have not found any potential drawbacks. There hasn't been any no side effects. There's no toxicity to this drug. The only drawback is it's kind of expensive.
Right. Yes, I agree with that. The studies with TA1, really, it's very safe. Even there were studies that it was given to what we call decompensated liver disease, even end-stage renal diseases, even on dialysis, and even primary immunodeficiencies. These were pretty safe given these products. And to cap that off, there's actually a transient increase in ALT when you use TA1. It can even elevate twice the number of ALT, but it will actually even go down as this transient effect takes place. The thing here, though, it's also injectable. You have to remember that whenever you inject something, redness, swelling, rash, those things you need to observe. And the safety, again, I get this a lot about TA1 in pediatrics, nursing women, pregnant, definitely not established yet. So that's something that I think we should not advocate for now until further studies.
Right.
And then what lab from Ziti, what lab do you use for lab testing?
Well, as I said, you start with the basics, the CBC and the differential. And then afterwards, if you have any concerns, you order the lymphocyte map and the stealth infection panels out there.
Right. Yeah. So there's so many. I think this is a good company. This is from Doctor. What is his name? He's a foreign doctor for
Uh,
your array one.
oh yeah, there's I don't
Yeah,
know
he
his
has
name.
good lab tests in that company of his. So, but yeah, there's more of what he has. I know, right? It's in the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, the array one
Well,
is a good shotgun approach if you don't know what stealth infection they're dealing with. You can kind of scatter and kind of see what else might be activated.
Dr. Joseph in Halassa, I think, likes this test.
Yeah.
Kent sharing that William Seeds uses TA1 at a dose of 400 milligrams per day every morning for 3 months. Any comments on that?
Micrograms. I put in
Microgram.
Sorry, micrograms.
Every day?
every day.
Hmm. I don't know if you get any benefit from that. I mean, the studies show minimum I found is 1.5 milligrams, but most use higher dose, like 3.4 milligrams for like melanomas and sepsis.
Right. And yeah, on literature also, Kent, 1.5 is the recommendation sub-Q even every third day. So, I mean, as you can see, anybody can play around with this protocol, but on the studies of TA1, it's every third day, and then for 2 weeks, and even for viral infections in 3 months or longer for complicated immune problems. So, but I think the different protocols that I saw, they're pulsed, but there are cases in acute cases, I would agree with the daily dosing in terms of what
And
Stefan's
this
doing.
is it, he does use this in combination with a number of other peptides pre and post surgery. So maybe that's the difference
Well, if
because
you can,
Right.
we're using it in injury recovery.
oh.
That makes sense. Yeah, because he likes to mix and match. That's what I remember. So
Okay, thank you very much for that.
yeah, you're welcome. And here's Tony saying it's Cyrex. So I think that is it.
Yes, Cyrix Labs.
Cyrex. That's right.
I put in here the
And
chat, the circulating concentration of thymosin alpha 1, it varies. So in children, it's higher, and then in adults, it's lower, and it does range in diseases. So I think it depends what you're trying to treat. I mean, if a healthy person, you probably have good thymosin alpha 1 levels in your blood. If you're diseased, you have cancer, you have autoimmune, you probably don't have as much in the first place. This may be why someone is not able to regulate their immune system. Why are they having bad response to EBV or cancers? It's probably because they're very low. And so it's dependent on the person. You'd probably want to give a higher dose to someone who needs more regulation of their immune system.
right. And then that's why when I mentioned to you about these three families of thymus gland extracts, I actually have like a little protocol for them. So I mean, it's pretty easy to remember for Thymogen. It's the oral one. It's a general immune support. Like for example, respiratory infections, you got the flu. And then the middle one I just mentioned a while ago, which is Thymulin. I use that for chronic inflammation. So what, RA, lupus. And you have to remember with Thymulin also, this is a zinc-dependent immunity response. So you really have to check your zinc RBC before using Thymulin because it depletes your zinc. So that's why you need to give zinc. And that's another standout detail for Thymulin versus Thymogen and Thymosin Alpha 1, because you don't have to do that for the other ones. And then for Thymosin Alpha 1, that's your biggest gun for example, for viral and cancer support. So, I mean, those are just easy ways on how to remember as a guide for how to use these thymus extracts. Yeah, and that's definitely, again, more of clinical experience rather than really more not medically literature assisted.
Mhm.
For Tatiana, talking about melanoma, what that already excised on 2 occasions and at present time not detected. Are any benefits using it preventative and for how long?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. So why does melanoma happen in the first place? I don't think it's always from sunlight, because I know patients who have it in the uvula on the bottom of their foot. Why does melanoma happen? And it may be due to immune system dysregulation. So Thymogen, thymosin, it can prevent it. Maybe it can help prevent other things. I mean, what else can happen if melanoma is happening?
Right. Well, again, to be honest with you, one of the trickier cancers that I've encountered is melanoma. When you thought you treated it, and then suddenly there's something going on in the brain after a few years, it's melanoma. It's right there. That's why, again, I do agree with preventative measures for melanoma, which includes TA1 and all of these other thymus gland extracts. So again, this could be something. There's no such protocol to really guide you through this, but I would suggest definitely making thymosin alpha 1 as part of your regular scheduled regimen for this patient. I mean, do it in pulsing like every month, for example. But really, there's no specific protocols for it,
Right.
unfortunately. Maybe
Yeah.
in the future there'll be one.
I mean, I think this is a potentially great preventative medicine. We only use it, of course, in diseases. That's where you can see the benefit. I only use it in patients who have chronic fatigue and can't fight off infections and so forth. So I see the benefit. But as a preventative to prevent getting sick, I mean, I may have one or two patients who use it preventatively when they know they might be exposed to someone and they know they can't fight it off. So they'll use it like that.
All right. Well, as we all know, we're always exposed to stress, and that's a big immunodepressant right there. So, I mean, enhancing your NK cells, enhancing T cell function. I mean, who doesn't need that every day? It even has antioxidant, anti-aging properties when you talk about Thymogen. Again, the beauty of this really, you won't go wrong about overdosing on helping the immune system because every day we're just bombarded with all of these immune suppressants and we just didn't even know about it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So back in the early COVID days, when it first reared its ugly head, something jogged my memory about the type of virus it was. And there were two similar type outbreaks in the early 2000s, one in Morocco and another one I think in Europe. And Thymosin Alpha 1 was used as a preventative and as a treatment, and it was quite successful in the places that they used it. And of course, then we got shut down because you couldn't have nice things. Before that, so that Dr. Kathleen O'Neill Smith, those of us who know her, she was a big advocate of using Thymosin Alpha 1 and Thymosin Beta 4 together in sequence, 1 month on, 1 month off. She had a number of hair loss patients, and she did quite well injecting it into the scalp. So it was pretty interesting. So we did it a couple times. We had some success, and then we had trouble getting it. So, but it's kind of back on board again. So, so there's a number of uses. That are not really for illness and like you said, for prevention. So,
Well, if you think how unfair this is, as mentioned by Stefan, Russia and Europe they're using this freely, like there's no tomorrow. And now we're just having a hard. I mean, I think TA1 got back on track again with us. I think that's what I heard last. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jillian. But there was a moment that we can't get this. And Thymulin, I think she has it, but that's also not something available left and right. Thymogen, if you can avail of that, it's a little pricey too. So again, accessibility is sometimes an issue.
Okay. So yeah, so it does have quite a few, quite good properties. And if I remember, because I'd done a thing on it a long time ago, what is it? What is it where how much you give them to kill 50% of the population? I mean, it was like, an
Yeah.
I forget what
Dose to treat. Is it dose to treat?
Yeah, it was like basically you could give barrels of it and then it wouldn't kill the kill the mice. So
Right.
it really is pretty safe. Just don't rub it on the ground before you inject it. I guess that would be the yeah.
Oh, they're LD50 according to Steve.
That's my old timer's disease rearing its head there. I think those things
They're helping you out.
They are helping me out. Well, that's the kids. like you. So,
Tatiana has more questions. Same patient with two occasions of melanoma had papillary thyroid cancer, small nodule, status post partial thyroidectomy, 42-year-old female overall, pretty healthy. So, what's your recommendation on that, Stefan?
Papillary thyroid cancer, small nodule. That's a pretty rare one. Hmm.
Yep. Well, I mean, yeah, it's still. I think I'm looking at this as more of a maintenance. It's just like pretty healthy. I just don't know when the cancer was, how it was treated. But basically, I'll stick with if it was my patient, I would do this like I do it in pulses like monthly with a 1.5 milligram, and I could do it like in a week's duration, and then just stop it for 3 weeks, and then again just redo it again over and over again for a month. I mean, that's my take. Of course, you probably have a different one.
Yeah, I can't say I've come across this particular cancer very much. I don't have much of opinion on this. You want to know why this happened in the first place? That's always my first question. Like, why do these things happen? You have to look at the diet. You have to look at their stealth infections. You have to look at their nutrient deficiencies. I mean, when I hear thyroid cancers, I always think of iodine deficiencies, selenium deficiencies, these things. And when you optimize the basics of the nutrients, you can maybe, prevent more of these problems from happening.
Well, one thing about this case, she probably won the lottery in a bad way.
Yeah,
It's hard to get two cancers in one system. I
right.
mean, I've been seeing cancer, but rarely would you see them going into one person. So there's definitely something that needs to be assessed with this patient. Yeah, your array panels should be done on this. The immune system needs to be assessed a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Well, I think that's all we have for tonight. I'm giving another lecture on Thursday on the Wolverine protocol to the Body Healthcare. That's Avery Jackson's group. So I'll be over
mhm.
there.
Okay. You're just everywhere, huh?
I'm everywhere. I got a lot of demands.
Okay. And let's see. It's M. Jones at Great Lakes.
Echo. Yeah, I think they provide your CMEs.
Oh, they're the CME people. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. Terrific. Okay. Any sort of summary there, Stefan?
Yeah, so essentially, I love Thymosin Alpha 1. I have a very low threshold to prescribe it because it's so safe. I've never seen a problem with it. And it really is useful for that difficult patient when you have that complex chronic fatigue, stealth infection, a mycotoxin, biotoxin, cancer patient. They'll perk up with some thymosin alpha 1, pretty much to a T. I mean, rarely with some exception, someone takes it, doesn't notice a change. Typically, they'll feel something, especially if they've been struggling for a long time. If you give them a little bit of immune support, they perk up.
Okay. You put a link up in there for integrative peptides. Don't they usually have mostly oral
Yeah,
agents?
that's only oral. And then your patients and providers can make an account with that. But if you're a provider, you contact Jillian. She put her information there in the chat, and she can get you the better pharmaceutical grade injectables.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
did you see them in A4M? They're starting to build this injectable side of their practice. So I mean, our practice or their company. So I don't know how in fruition now that is as we speak, but that was from Kent Holtorf, and I spoke to him over there. He's saying he's going to launch injectable parts of this now. So I don't know where that is now.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Well, we have the CME still on, so we'll
Oh yeah, sure.
talk
Sorry.
about companies later.
Yeah,
So,
ship a sale.
um, so what about the cost for this stuff,
You know,
Stefan?
a vial, yeah, probably 15, 10 milligram vial, probably about 170 bucks, 180 bucks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Does it come in the oral form?
Yeah,
I imagine.
oral form is equivalent cost, maybe a little bit cheaper if you get a wholesale.
Okay. Okay, great. Um, All right. So, and any other comments, questions? Dr. Quinn left. So is Dr. Tano around to tell us about the research group? Let's see, he's on here. So, you'll wake him up. So,
We did meet on Saturday and it went beautifully.
how about what are you up to, John?
I'm trying to catch up with these other guys, but they're 10 miles ahead of me. Robert Quinn's one of the hardest workers in the world, and so is Dr. Tano, and you know that Dr. Pete Dimitri is involved with some major medical discoveries, and all three of those guys are working together. So it's fun just
Great.
being around them.
Okay. Tell them to make us proud. Okay.
They are.
Okay. All right. I hope you're feeling better, John.
Yeah.
And-
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? We have Dr. Quinn next week. He's going to be talking to us about some. I had pain stuff written down because he wasn't sure, but we're going to be talking about popular uses for cannabis in medical treatment. So that's next week.
All right.
And Stefan, terrific. Thank you. And succinct and to the point.
Right.
And
Try.
okay, so I guess we're gonna. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Debbie said your recording limit.
Yeah, that's it. 1 hour. That's all you guys get. We got to make these short and sweet, these lectures.
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie's on
All
you.
right. All right. So yeah, we hit the recording limit. So we'll say good night. Great job, Stefan, as always. Everybody, anybody else, any meetings they're going to, or any tips or clinical pearls, we're always happy to hear them. And with that, otherwise we'll say good night and good hockey, I guess. I don't know. There was something like that. So, all right.
Bye,
So
guys.
good night, everybody. Take care. And we'll see you again next week. Stefan, thank you so much for being with us as always.
Sure
Okay.
thing.
Okay.